So I think what I'm witnessing is the Texas beatdown, right? What I call the Texas bitch down, which is somebody in Texas thought they were entitled to promulgate a fraudulent bond scheme. And some people want to blame it on a particular person who had a particular scheme and a particular legacy. But I've since learned that there's multiple storylines in Texas that have associated the same demographic with similar attributes. And what I understand is at some point, you're supposed to be able to use children as if you're borrowing from children. Texas gives you their fucking kid. And then they expect you to pay for their kid your whole life. And you're supposed to take whatever the concept is of their child, their actual literal child. And this justifies them engaging in completely unacceptable social behavior, complete acts of irresponsibility, intentful and willful deceit, including in acts of religious persecution, and actually doing it in front of children, as if they're entitled to raise children to grow up to believe it is okay to be cruel and it is okay to be deceptive with certain groups of people. I may be wrong, but this has been my experience the entire time I've been in Texas. And so what ends up happening is you need to accept that you're supposed to take the kid yourself. You have to accept that somebody is trying to extort you into agreeing to take a loan from their child so that the rest of your life after that, not only have you made the buy-in, the soul buy-in to the satanic pact to loan out children, but the rest of your life, somebody else is entitled to determine what's actually yours. Because you owed that to their kid. They gave you their kid as a loan. You owe that to them. It's inherent through the child. Now, maybe there are other cultures in other countries, including those that adhere to international laws regarding protection of the rights of the child, who don't literally loan their children out so that they can extort people into cooperating with acts of crime that they want to say is a part of their culture, including luring people from other states and other countries to their state, to their city, engaging them in horrible slander and trying to compel them to engage in horrible slanders against somebody else as a demonstration of assimilation. Or they'll just keep trafficking you from city to city to city, coming up with a fake identity for you and telling you you have to perform with this identity and you have to accept somebody else completely fabricated their identity and you have to perform as them and you in that contrivance and lie about the actual reality, or they're just never going to accept you. And they'll just bounce you from place to place to place because they've already set up this kickback pipeline based on complete alienation of actual authenticity in terms of what you're capable of producing yourself. Because everything on the goddamn state has already been attributed to somebody else. And your production is merely for somebody else's claim. And if you fulfill enough benchmarks in somebody else's portfolio, they might let you wear around a loan on somebody else's soul. And by and large, if you're going to get anywhere, you have to agree to accept a loan on their children. So today, you've got some debt you got to pay. And you want me to pimp a kid. And the kid you ended up getting was me. Again, because I don't accept. I do not accept that there's anything appropriate or anything culturally. You can't say your culture needs to be respected when you're violating the law and engaging in soul binding that is based upon the exploitation of children. Period. This isn't about your culture. This isn't about your religion. And you do it over and over again. It is the horror of my whole experience in Texas. They throw their kid at you. And their kids are beautiful and genius. But at some point, you understand No, you need to take my kid as a loan and then you owe me. No, I don't do that. You don't need it anyway. You've got these things. No, you need to take my kid as a loan. That's how we do it. And then somewhere later on in my kid's life, they're going to get something back. And in the meantime, you pay me for my kid. That's what they've been doing this whole time. What am I supposed to do? Let me ask you, is there anybody in the fucking world that can hear me that does not agree with loaning out actual fucking children instead of taking responsibility for your own life? Is everybody else on the planet literally brainwashed and beaten down into believing they have to have their own child and they have to pimp their own fucking kid to take care of themselves? Are we as a planet so bankrupt that nobody is willing to actually work on their own and produce on their own and let their own work take care of them? That we have to either have our own children or find a way to get access to somebody else's children so we can loan them out? This isn't even about need. We don't need to loan the children out, except that somehow people were allowed to be able to get away with thinking it was okay. Who and how was it allowed to be cultivated that we live in a paradigm where the pleasure that comes from the innocence and the purity of children is allowed to be harvested and given to the parents as some form of diversion while somebody else takes the life of the child, including their capabilities, their future based on what they're doing now, their desires, the skills and gifts that they're exhibiting at the time, and then hook up a future that somebody else gets to live out. While you're supposed to spend a majority of your life as a parent, what? Competing to see where in the kickback pipeline you can put your kid so that they can hook up somebody else's life to move forward? You're trying to evoke references right now. I know which children you're trying to get, and you're not going to get any of those children. I'm never going to give you anything about any of the young people I knew unless you get me as well. You understand? And where I come from, they're trained fucking killers. They're trained fucking killers that'll destroy your entire fucking country. Did you forget that? Okay, let's get this straight. Let's close this out. Let's make sure we get this straight. You let narcos infiltrate the government of the United States for going on at least 30 years. And they hooked up a very devious plan where they were, among other things, not only willing to illegally coin their own children, they illegally coined a bunch of other children whose lives they stole from and then gave to their children as a sort of placation. And they also murdered their own children, including once their children got old enough to maybe do something really esteemable, like provide the political preconditions for one day being president, because for whatever reason where they were in the pipeline, it was their time to be president. So they murdered their own child and took the future for their son, for themselves. And you did this for 30 years. And you want the rest of us to accede and accept that that's what America is. And that's who we are. And we have every right and every entitlement to be that. And that's not America. If you're in a country right now where you have to deal with the fact that your government got infiltrated by narco-terrorists and that they tried to manipulate anything about your political discourse, your civil society, your actual culture, your heritage, to accede to a homogenization of expectations of performance in order to feed somebody's drug habit, including a drug habit they legitimized by making sure the drugs they got were of the quality and manufactured by contractors that had already been whitewashed through the legislative sessions that they imposed themselves upon, then I support you. But they're narcos. You don't give in to narcos. It doesn't matter if it takes 30 years. You don't give them your kids. Teach your kids to fight. Teach your kids to fight. Let them know who they are and where they come from. So I'm sorry, the only 11-year-old you're getting today is me. The only 11-year-old you're getting any fucking day is me.